Hello, my name is Jennifer Carey Reichle, and I want to thank all of you for being here today to honor my dad, John Carey, 2 days before what would have been his 99th birthday. It is a fitting tribute that John Carey Place is so near the beach, a place so dear to everyone in our family, and near to my parents' home since the 1950s. My mother and father, our mother and father, would be so incredibly delighted with this honor, and our family is extremely grateful to Catherine and George and everyone who has worked so hard to accomplish this. Thank you from the bottom of our hearts. My children and my future grandchildren, someday, will love coming here as a memorial to the man we all loved and to a man genuinely respected by his community. This past Memorial Day, my family watched the movie Saving Private Ryan again. At the end of the movie, Matt Damon's character says to his wife in present day, "Tell me I lived a good life," as he stares at a sea of white crosses of the soldiers, the friends he fought alongside in World War II. I said to my family after the movie, this is the question every surviving soldier asks. Tell me I lived a good life. I believe that much of who my dad was, as my brother Chip referenced, was motivated, what motivated him, what drove him, stems back to World War II. His older brother, as Chip said, Henry, was killed in the war in Germany and is buried in France among a sea of white crosses like the cemetery in Saving Private Ryan. I know my dad felt a responsibility to be a good citizen and to make a difference in his community and the world because of his older brother's sacrifice for our country. My dad always gave his all, whether it was at Yale, at Harvard Law School, teaching at NYU, serving as the United States representative to the United Nations Subcommission on the Prevention of Discrimination and Protection of Minorities, as a lawyer, as a judge, as mayor of Rye, as Rye City Councilman, and later in life, a local TV producer of a show he hosted. He was always looking to make a difference. But more than that, he was a man who loved his family and whose devotion was unmatched. He was brilliant. No one would argue that. He was handsome, like Cary Grant. He was funny, but only to those who really knew him. He was dependable, as this daughter knew she could always turn to her dad. His foremost values were kindness and generosity, and he lived out these qualities. He was a mentor to many, and a person whose opinion and advice were worth seeking. If someone considered my dad his or her mentor, my dad would take them out to lunch and be there for them. My dad was the kind of dad and grandfather who would show up. Even at 90, my mom and dad traveled to Texas to watch their grandsons' violin and cello recitals. My dad was not perfect. Who is? But he was a lifelong learner and always wanted to be on the cutting edge of technology. He was the first partner in his law firm, Couder Brothers, to get a computer. The first one, way back when. And it was huge. He helped my boys learn to walk when they were little and was there again 13 years later to help my family recover from a life-changing accident. He helped all of us to learn to walk again. He and I had many talks in the last 3 years of his life when he stayed with my family. We talked about the war. He loved to wear his World War II hat around and appreciated when people would thank him for his service to our country. We talked about family, and he was an incredible support to me. And it wasn't so much what he did, but rather his presence, just being there, that helped me and all of us. And we talked about God. He made peace with God and knew the love of his Savior, Jesus Christ. To the best of his ability, he tried to live in a way that had no regrets, imparted great wisdom to others, and gave support to others on their life journeys. I want to close with a haiku poem. For those who knew my dad well, you know how much he loved poetry. He memorized many poems as a young boy at school at Milton. Not this Milton and Rye, but Milton Academy in Massachusetts. And he was able to quote poetry till his last days. It was really amazing, his recall of poetry. And I was very envious of this superpower. Haiku poetry topped them all. It was his favorite. And in a haiku poem, there are 3 lines. The first has 5 syllables, the second has 7 syllables, the third has 5 syllables again. This is my meager attempt, but an offering of utmost love and respect nonetheless. To the man who always made me feel safe, who was my prince, my hero, my best friend, my greatest support and cheerleader, the one I called Daddy, who let me come home from kindergarten with a kitten because the teacher asked whose parents would let them come home with a kitten that's stuck up in a tree. Mine will! We always joked about that. And sure enough, my dad, when I walked in the door with a shoebox with a kitten, and I said, "Look, Daddy, I got a kitten," he was so happy and embraced my joy and said, "Yay!" My dad was the greatest example to me of what our Father who art in heaven is like, and helped me understand the love of God throughout my lifetime. Here is my haiku about my dad. Singing peonies, community far and wide, devoted service.